So let's start this this session, which has a strong and a key topic, scaling innovations, and that we will address today, this afternoon. We had, I think, very interesting and visionary talks until now in the plenary session from the European Commission, of course, with all those initiatives and policies that, let's say, give a special role to the construction industry with the big challenges ahead. And we also had these speeches from the, let's say, the industry side, explaining how those visions and the innovation trends are also turned today into practice in the large companies, of course, but also in specific businesses, or I mean, in day-to-day operations of smaller and also innovative partner industries and companies. Somehow, scaling innovation is bridging a gap, I think, and that's what we want to discuss this afternoon. From the point of view of research, development, innovation, it's clear that there is a need to align to these, let's say, society trends, but also understanding from a specific market point of view, what are the needs of our market, of the construction, the built environment, let's say, markets. And this is tricky sometimes. And if we look at the problem from the other angle, so the market side itself has to formulate somehow a demand for innovation and identify the path and the opportunities for growth, for development that can be leveraged from all those innovation activities. And I'm wondering, and I want also to challenge a little bit this afternoon the question of what's in between. If you look at this technology readiness level, you know, the very well-known scale of technology maturity, there is somewhere in the middle something called the valley of death. So this is usually the gap we have amongst the lower TRL, 3, 4, where we develop research innovations, and 6, 7, where they are put closer to the market. But what's in between, and how can we make this shift in the technology maturity? It's a question of collaboration, of partnerships. There are several ways to proceed, and that's what I think we can investigate further this afternoon with our, and starting with our 2 speakers, so Tom and Jason. So this was, let's say, a quick introduction, which I think set the scenes, and then I will leave the stage to Tom to go first with his presentation. So Tom has more than 25 years of experience in engineering, military and business experience, and he currently serves in the executive committee of the Green Building Council Italia. And also, Tom, you are very much involved in the Sustainable Places Conference, so gathering all this community all together. And with these few introductory words, I will give you the floor for the presentation, which I'm about.
Which is lost. That's great. Thanks for the plug on Sustainable Places. The call for proposals closes at the end of June or something, but we're easy to work with 6 through 9 September in Nice. It's going to be French. It's going to be fun. Submit your proposals and come to Nice on the beach. And so then I think you're pulling up the presentation. I think you're going to flip the slides.
Yes, I'm doing it.
Great.
So not exactly how I was in the training, but should be fine.
Sure. As you pull them up, I can get started because I know we're tight on time. So I've got 8 minutes. I'll be flashing slides across the screen. I'm Tom Meservey from Research to Market Solution, R2M. We're an innovation company, and it's right in the name, research to market and market to research. And I'll only talk about the company as an excuse to get at the bigger picture of scaling innovation. So I don't want to tell you about R2M, and I want to talk about scaling innovation for another 7 minutes and use some examples that bring out those points.
Okay.
Pathways. Yes, go. Can I use the screen, really?
No, it's my screen. Sorry, it's Laura sharing.
Sure. Okay, Laura. Great.
So
Thank you.
You tell me when to change, okay, Thomas?
I will tell you when to change. So we're
Perfect.
going to start with some flash facts on R2M, but flash. Let's go. But we're a nice company of, you can go ahead, Laura. Hit the slide. Go. Slide flipping functionality dead. Good. Ooh, that's a big R2M solution and lost in file conversions. That's great. So we're a nice company. We're turning 10 this month on 7 June. We're about 90 people. We're deeply involved in research, and we've had the pleasure to bring about 40 companies into European research for the first time. And that's probably the favorite thing we do. You can hit the slide, Laura. We're present in Italy, France, Spain, and the UK. And the idea is if something works somewhere, scale it somewhere else. So there's a concept of scaling. Slide. Hit the button 2 or 3 times. We do 3 main things. On the left, we'll see research and innovation. Larry, you can hit the advance, hit it again, and hit it again. Thank you. You can stop there. So we do research on the left. On the right is the market, mostly with sustainability consulting. So we talk to real estate asset managers. We certify their buildings, and we tell them you should use the stuff in the middle. And the stuff in the middle is innovative products and services that are coming out of European research. Mature things out of European research that are typically being incrementally improved. But if a company is not on a certain market, we try to bring them on the markets we are and help them scale their plans in places where they are not. So again, a concept of scaling. Next slide, please. And this slide just quickly shows from some of our research projects, we've met great processes, services, and technologies, and we're out there trying to field those things. And it's never easy, but that's what our business is. Let's put things on the market for the first time. Let's go 0 to 1. Next slide. And 2 examples, that's Gioia 22. It's a skyscraper in Milan. It's about 6,500 square meters of solar glass. The black part that you see there, it's onyx solar glass, and it produces about 1 megawatt. So that's a landmark structure in Italy, and that's a good success for us. The other image there is a Brainbox AI, artificial intelligence on buildings, and the concept there is install that quickly on fleets of buildings. And if we can have self-driving cars, then we can have self-driving buildings. So those are 2 examples, and the concept there is partnering resellers, distribution channels for your company. So we are a scaler for other companies. We didn't make that glass, but we help put it on that building, and that improves the sales and the impact of that technology for the parent company. Next slide, please. And something that's been critical to us in pushing things from 0 to 1. Laura, did you hit next slide? Yeah, and you can just hit it 4 or 5 times. But this slide shows that's the Galleria in Milano. They have to change all that glass up there. They have our samples, and we're telling them you should be sustainable, Milan. That would be a good thing to do. So what we have is the glass, IES, the simulation environment to simulate the impact, Cinevision to control the data flow, Zootech, the construction management platform to manage the process. You can hit the slide again. Then we certify that structure within the Green Building Council lead or what have you. And next, hit that 1 more time. And if someone doesn't want to pay for that, we'll pay for it as an ESCO. So get out of the way, stop objecting to innovation, just let's go. So the scaling concept on this slide is nested integrated business model. If we tried to do just one thing, we would be broke because everything in construction is slow, not fast, and you've got to figure out how to bootstrap or finance yourself until something goes well. Next slide. So I'll get off of R2M solution and I'll talk about some conditions for innovation. And Laura, we're going to be fast. Slide. So maybe you're a big company, maybe you're a startup, maybe you're a small company. Next slide. You have to understand who you are and how you fit in. Are you a startup? Are you a scale up? Are you a scaler? And this is something that changes as you become more successful, which means the people you need to hire, the structure you need to have, the processes you employ need to change. And that's a hard thing to do, is actually change in time, because nobody likes change. Next slide. And you have to understand these companies, or you over time, are different. And are you a lifestyle business or are you a growth business? Are you flat or are you hierarchical, or are you hybrid? And there's no right answer, but you have to understand for you what works. Next slide. And most companies fail. Tech startups are hard, harder than others. And should you bootstrap or should you take money from investors or from a bank? And these are questions you have to answer, but there are different pathways. So as you work with different people, if you're talking about one pathway and someone else is thinking of another pathway, you two aren't speaking the same language because you have different things in mind. Next slide. And I will just make a remark on culture and all those different decisions. you need to impart on your organization. What happens when the answer is not written down, or when the client calls and there's nobody to ask the question to? And culture answers that question. You got to have a good one. So it's a good thing to think about. Next slide. Okay, last part. Platforms and clustering in the meta building ecosystem, and brought to life by an example. I'll describe what all these different things are. Next slide. And we got about 2 minutes to get this done. Here's GP Project. They're a small engineering company in Italy. They have a patent on this very nice wooden timber construction, bio-based, straw-filled circular material that they're doing for the first time, but they've got it installed in about 17,000 square meters in 7 buildings. Their focus is building buildings, not launching a product, but they came across the idea for this product and they made a patent and they have initial success. Next slide. Here you can see they're doing it manually. Someone is making that formwork. They put in the hay panels, they cover it up, they have cranes, they install, that's roofing elements on the bottom right. They have minimum testing certifications for the Italian market, but they've won some awards. It's a success story. Next slide. So that's Public 1.0. What about Public 2.0? What if they want to go into France? What if they want to go into Spain? What are the testings and certifications required there? What's the value of a CE mark? Do I need a life cycle analysis to compare my product against others with respect to the circular economy so I can talk about taxonomy and all the policies we heard about? How do I do that? I build buildings. I don't study policy. I don't do these other things. So wouldn't it be nice if I could get help from someone to help scale me? Next slide. So that gets to this coaching concept. This gets to the open innovation testbed concept. There are 2 proposals or projects now that are putting this together: an InnoSup that distributes open calls and meta building, and meta building labs, which forms an OITB. And one feeds into the other. They're 2 independent but complementary projects. Next slide. But imagine this GP project. They can come into a platform and they can say, test your innovation, get help, send me to the innovation coach because I want to get help. I know where I want to go, but not how to get there. Next slide. So the idea is they can go in and plug into a network of testing facilities. They can talk to people that know about testing and certifications that accelerate them on their way. They can have visibility on schedules. They can have visibility on pricing so that some of the ambiguity or fog is lifted from that experience. Next slide. Technical support, boosting my innovation, get help. Next slide. Great project. If you want to know more, type in meta building or meta building labs. You'll go to Cordis and you'll find out all about it. Next slide. And from meta building, there's a 60,000 euro stimulus, an open call. Open calls are important because they start conversations. They get people exploring ideas. And in an open call proposal, it's not even one, but it doesn't matter. It's already a success. The conversation has started, and there's an institute in Portugal that is going to do the LCA. There's a company in Spain that's going to bring them into Spain. They're getting help on internationalization from a company in Italy. They're going to work on a BIM library and plugin plan for a design thinking tool, or designing a designer tool that goes on top of their family of public products, and get help on specifications for public factory. How can we industrialize this manual process? So great and good for them. What a success. Even if they don't win, they're thinking in that direction. And that's one example of scaling, getting help on this international platform and stage. Next slide. Parting slide. As we talk about new technologies and getting them out there on the market, you got to get people to understand what they are, how they work, and how to implement them. Otherwise, you have to do it every time all by yourself. So it's great that the World GBT Green Building Council is hosting this event, or as a part of this event. We in Italy work with Green Building Council Italy, and it's an opportunity to connect to building professionals. IIPLE, Construction Professionals Training Institute, is another organization we work with in Italy, and I only put them there as an example. Their job is to train their local engineers on innovations in the construction sector. So as you're developing technologies, don't forget about knowledge transfer. Hard to do, but it requires the person on the other side understands what you were trying to tell them and can implement what you wanted them to implement, because that's needed for scaling. Next slide. Thank you. And that finishes my talk. Oh no, I had conclusions. No unique answer in this whole exploring process of what's the right answer, because everybody wants the right answer, but there isn't one unique right answer. As you're designing for innovation in your organization, be aware of who you are. and how that applies to you. And then platforms and clustering would cover that. What's one pathway for success? Thanks. Thank you, Laura, for flipping the slides, and thanks everyone for the attention.
Yes, thank you very much, Laura, for having checked and managed the slides. Thanks a lot, Tom, for this inspiring speech. I think we'll be back after those two presentations with questions. We'll be back to you. But without waiting anymore, we will welcome now Jason Miller. So Jason has more than 25 years of varied experience in various engineering areas, amongst which the environmental data sets, document repository, as well as GIS, geographical information system, human health risk assessment, and toxic litigation. So now, Jason, you work as the head of innovation at Rumble, and that's and we are happy to welcome you. The floor is yours.
Super. Thank you, Savan. And yeah, so I think I'm going to take 8 minutes here and just talk a little bit about Rumble's experience in scaling innovation as a large corporate, and building on what Thomas said. You know, everyone has a different experience based on sort of your organization and your goals and your design, but you know, try and highlight a few things here from our experiences, and you know, some things that we think are going to be important if we as a sector really want to achieve our goals of a more sustainable built environment. So to quickly start a little bit on Rumble's background and our innovation journey to date, we're about 4 years into our innovation journey, so to speak. It was in 2018 that we really decided that we wanted to make a big push around innovation, that we wanted to make innovation one of the key drivers for our strategy around sustainability, to make sure we can really be a partner for sustainable change. And so over that last 4 years, we've built up a pretty good sized portfolio, growing our annual investments year over year. Right now, we're investing more than 15 million euro a year in our internal innovations, plus what our clients invest with us. It's actually closer to 20 at this point, growing quite nicely, and that's resulted for us in a nice portfolio of projects. That portfolio is in total generating now several tens of millions of euro for us annually in new project revenue, with opportunity pipelines quite more than that. So we're not satisfied, we're not done, but we're encouraged, and we really are starting to see scaling in projects. Next slide, please. So yeah, I just wanted to give a few highlights, and not to go too much into the details of particular projects, but to talk a bit about some of our projects. I think there's some common themes, right? So, you know, we're working on, you know, the building on what Thomas said. Obviously, a lot of interest in AI, machine learning, generative design in the built space. How can we make best use of properties and develop that? We're looking at urbanization and urban planning. You know, how can we build the most livable cities for everyone? Taking advantage of traffic planning, all the various data sets. How can we, you know, really brutally be honest with ourselves about the traffic implications of new developments and new transit changes in the city environment? And how can we talk about sustainability really using data? So when we're thinking about changes in the built environment, how can we drive circularity in the built environment, and how can we think about the impacts of different design decisions? And a common theme here for us is it is through new technologies and the application of our data that we get to scale, right? Because it's technology allows us to develop solutions that can be repeatable and scalable in a way that we couldn't do with in our traditional consulting framework. So just a little bit about, next slide, on what we've really learned about scaling and some of the hurdles that we've hit and in some instances overcome, some still overcoming. But I think, you know, just first, it's really, and Thomas, you touched on this as well, it's a bit about the importance of focus, right? There are a million good ideas, and it can be a little brutal. But if you want to get to progress and really impact, it's important to actually limit the number of things you try and do. You can't do everything well. So you end up stopping good ideas because you need to prioritize around your personal strategies on what are the most important things to you as an organization and the impact you want to make on society. And along with that, you've got to designate funding, right? Particularly for us as a large corporate, you have to make sure that you have some protected funding and space for innovation. Otherwise, innovation gets consumed by the day-to-day business of performing your work for your clients. Along with that funding, you need to make sure your innovators, they have your founders, your internal team leads, that they have personal goals and KPIs that encourage them around innovation learning, right, and around failure, that they have the space to not worry so much in the consulting environment important to us, but worry so much about the billable hour, but worry more about their longer term value creation, and that they're measured on that, and that they feel safe and protected if they want to come back and tell you that they need to kill a project or pivot it. And I think a next one here specifically for us as an engineering and science firm, we love technology. We love to get in there and geek out and be nerds. That can lead us, that has in the past led us down some dangerous paths, right? Because we get all excited about a solution, but you really need to step back and say, do you really understand the challenge you're trying to solve and the business you're trying to build, and really focus on that, and then the tech. Not getting too much tech first, which can be a problem for us. And then finally, really, if we think about, and this was to some of the open innovation comments, if we think about the impact that we need to achieve around sustainability in the built environment, no single organization has all the skills and capabilities to make that impact at the pace we need to make it. And so partnership is just critical to us. And next slide, I want to dive into that a bit more specifically about what we've learned about partnership. And some of our new skills. And I'll be honest, we're fairly new to partnership. We've made our first outside investment into startups and bringing on the partnership ecosystem just within the last year. Obviously, we've always worked in partnership and co-creation with our clients, but this is a little different. Now we're talking about how do we build products together with others in the building's value chain, right? And so, the key piece there, the first skill is really that full-on leadership support of the shared ownership concept that comes with partnership. All right, it's as our CEO likes to say, it's more important for Ramble to be a part of a new impactful solution that's really changes for the better our societal issues around sustainability than it is for us to try and own all of something and not do it well at the speed we need. Right. But in order to do that, you have to start thinking about how do you value partnership? What is the valuation of these new things you're building together? How do you want to approach that with your partners? How do you measure the different values you're putting in when some people may be putting in experience and expertise in background in the buildings environment? Some may be putting in that startup energy. Some may be coming in as investors. What is the value everyone brings to that partnership? And how do you manage that IP? Right. It's a little challenging for us. It's a different environment for our industry sector than I think it is for some others to start thinking about foreground and background IP and letting loose a little bit and giving access to others to really be open and innovate based on your platforms. But it's important. Right. And you've got to reach that consensus objective, right? It's no longer a single organization just driving the mission. Now you've got to really work with your partners on the consensus, what everyone wants out of this partnership. And then, us speaking as a large corporate, really important for us that we can connect those new partners into our organization, give them what they need without smothering them to death with the bear hug of love of a large corporate and all the bureaucracy and systems that we like. And we need to learn about that. How do we work across different types of organizations, right? Bringing in startups is hugely beneficial to us for the energy and the pace at which they can experiment. But if we try and work with them the way that we work with other large corporates in our value chain, that just won't succeed, right? So it's really important for us to think differently. But I wrap up there. But these are some of the skills that we've sort of identified around partnership and scaling. But I think it is just for us, and that is key. It's critical for us as a group to learn how to work together more tightly if we really want to achieve our goals. So yeah, thanks. So.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the very interesting words and thoughts. And I think we will have time to go deeper, perhaps, into some of those key topics. Perhaps just before, let's say, starting a more dynamic interactive exchange, I would like to remind to our participants that they can use either the chat. We have this chat here on the right of the screen, and the Q&A section as well. It's open for thoughts or even more specific questions, I mean, to you. And in the meantime, I think I will go perhaps for a first topic, which is related to this concept that you are describing, both of you, related to pathways for innovation to deployment, let's say, wider or broader scale deployment. And for you, Jason, I would have a first, perhaps a bit pragmatic also question, especially when it comes to Europe. What benefits, what specific benefits do you see as a large company? I mean, do you expect even from partnerships that you can build around? What specific benefits are you looking for? And I think about it, of course, in the context of all this community that we gather today around the European Commission research and innovation, let's say, activities.
Yeah, I think we actually we look at partnerships and we see different benefits from different partnerships, right? I think that there is a lot, and I'll pick two, right? When we talk about partnerships with universities, for example, for us, it's really universities as a source of innovation and energy and drive for, we have in excess now of 80 years of project knowledge and history. And making that accessible to some of our university partners so they can get in there and to quote an old Apple advertising campaign, think different about that data is really valuable to us, right? We recognize we don't have every good idea, never will, no organization does. So that is one key thing. Another piece for us is, we would like to see we would like to see platforms develop where we as an industry sector can begin to work together, share data, share around particular challenges and the sustainable mission for the built environment, right? Circularity of building materials, as an example. Those sort of platforms we think work best when they're built with partners who bring different skills to the table, be that the IT development component piece of that, or the different players in the value chain who, if it's a property owner who wants to bring in the challenges, the physical materials, the developers, everyone brings something different into that partnership piece. And so for us, we build a more robust platform together. And so that's what the other thing we see. We'd love to get into big platforms and have a small piece of that big platform, because we think that's how we'll be impactful around sustainability.
So this concept of platform goes beyond the pure technology
absolutely
aspect, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some links, I think, with the examples, Tom, you showed.
Exactly, precisely.
With the meta building open innovation platform, open innovation test beds as well, which bridge, I mean, the physical test beds facility for testing and the digital counterpart in terms of a lot of services, simulation, but also networking and so on. So I can perhaps direct to you, Tom, a quick question in this, still in this topic, related to the pathways, and perhaps it's a bit theoric, but how do you see results that come from? Also, Jason, you mentioned university teams with which you're likely to work with, and some innovative firms. And what really can distinguish or can help making a choice in those pathways, working with more, let's say, research and development, lower TRL, or innovation, or in the context of innovation deployment projects? And this reflects, I think, what we see in the Horizon Europe calls research and innovation actions, or innovation actions. Are there specifics, according to you, in the way we should manage the outcomes towards exploitation and deployment?
Yes, Levin, I think the heart of your question is exploitation. I see Andrea's question in the chat, which for me also is, how do you get this to happen in reality, to get people to implement it in construction? So the design and the open innovation is great, but how do you get people to actually do it? So I would touch on that aspect. And if you find the right easy answer, tell me, because that's the answer. It's not easy and it's counterintuitive. So as you start up a company or an idea or technology, you try to save money maybe, and you try to maybe not take a salary, or you pay very much attention to the financial aspect. But if you want to get something on the market, you need to spend money. You need to market. You need to invest in platforms. You need to invest in relationships. And there's an interesting psychological experiment happening in Italy. It's called the 110. So there's 110% incentive on your retrofit. You can actually do deep retrofit of your condominium. But there are so many people that don't want to do that because they don't want to choose the wrong company to do it. They don't trust that this is really happening. The bank, I don't want to work with a bank. What if something goes wrong and they're going to be disrupting my house? I mean, even if in our particular building where I live, we're going to have to spend money on our building in 10 years because the facade is falling off of the building, but there are still people voting against taking the free money to do it now just because they don't want to have to deal with that. So it's inertia. In order to get people to adopt these new technologies, the importance of regulation is important. So if you can regulate that you must do it, that works. Incentives work. And if you don't have those, you pretty much have to bootstrap it and finance it yourself and convince people through relationships, and then get partners where you can actually attach your value stream to others. And it's also an important time for us now to talk to not the energy technical people, but for the first time, the corporate social responsibility decision makers that are talking about sustainable development goals and ESG, environmental social governance programs in their organizations. And we're having conversations with them that are driving decisions that help the uptake of new approaches and new technologies. So that's a different way into the process, which is a little bit different than dealing with a design bid contractor.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you also for, linking with the comments we got in the chat from Andre. Thank you very much. I think, there was one question about helping taking these designs to reality by construction. So this indeed links with what you developed. There is also a comment on the technology readiness level, which falsely assumes linearity of knowledge production. I think this question falsely assumes linearity of knowledge production. There is knowledge production. There is also a lot of other aspects that you touch, including standardization. How both of you do see the importance of standardization at the various levels it can happen, of course, in relation with scaling the innovations?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's there is an inherent tension, right, between experimentation and innovation and standardization, obviously. But really thinking about you shouldn't overlook the benefits of standardization, right? Because if it's standardization in the design processes, or if it's beginning to deploy new standards for material science, Thomas, to your example, like the straw and wood construction and things like that, new standards there really lets you jump to scale, right? Because then you're not proving the same thing over and over again. You've sort of demonstrated a standard, and you can march on other aspects of your business model, or you can reapply data, reuse in different ways. So standardization, I think, is it's very important, particularly going to the comment I see in the chat about regulation and fear, right? It is through standardization, I think, and demonstrating the robustness of a new material or a new product in the built environment that you lower that fear and discomfort barrier for the next step. Yeah, no, agree. Standardization is the happy end. That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Standardization is the happy end of innovation. That's a comment from the Natos again in the chat. Yeah, super interesting. So trying to be, continuing the discussion and perhaps switching on the topic of the growing strategy. I think strategies. I think this was part of your presentation, Tom, but of course, Jason also covers what you showed. Perhaps a bit basic question, but are there usual patterns, according to your experience, Tom, on the types of companies that are out of the European projects, research innovation actions that we can see?
Boy, Sylvain, maybe I don't have a good answer for that. I'm sure there are some patterns, but my first intuition or reaction is good ideas and innovation come from different places, different directions. And I would, if it's on how can we increase the TRL, and once we have TRL 9, how can we scale something? I would go that there are different pathways and there are different ways to have success. And that was one of the themes of what I talked about. It's not wrong to be a big company or a small company or a lifestyle company or a growth company, or there are different ways to do it. But I think it goes back to what Jason said in terms of at some point it's focus, and that's hard to, it's easy to say, but it's harder to do. And then get the mechanisms in place to get that one thing going. And when do you keep something your own, and when do you license it out, or when do you sell it? Tell me when you have the answer to that too, because again, there's no right answer.
Yes, and I think Jason, in your presentation, I spotted that you talked or you mentioned the kind of incubation, I guess, of initiatives of startups. Can you elaborate a little bit more how it's addressed in Humble in relation with the partnerships you establish with research players, I mean? And especially I was interested if you can develop a little bit on this question of shared IP, which I think is, you touch very well, is probably something that is obvious. We need to join forces and by then join results at some point, work together, join IP, but of course it's tricky. So can you elaborate a little bit on this topic?
Yeah, a little bit. First on our, how we sort of nurture and incubate projects, and then I'll touch on the IP piece. But we've tried to bring a lot of the learnings from the lean startup environment into our internal innovation processes. So we've established, I would say, sort of parallel organizations around exploring new innovation investments that are somewhat protected from our existing business. So we're not caught in, as one of my colleagues likes to refer to it, the cycle of doom, where the never-ending demands of everyday business just drag down your innovation initiatives. But so within that, for us, it's very important to think about, and I touched on this briefly, but to move in sprints, to try and learn from our brethren in more technical industries about really being agile, right? Learning very quickly, and then making agreements about how we advance investment as we go through the process. So we do run internal incubators throughout the business, different scale of accelerators, and then as you mature, you get more and more room to move and more funding. And then it is, for us that is actually, you have to agree that with your partners, right? I mean, we're in negotiations now with some partners. We're making sure that we agree on what are our success factors? How will we judge this, together? If we're making a mutual investment, what is success? What factors do we need to see? Is it in 3 months, 6 months, a year that we need to see this next stage gate advance, that we would agree mutually? This is what we need to see. This is what we're putting on the table, so that we have confidence that both partners are in it together, and no one's going to leave in the middle because they suddenly change priorities. It will still happen, but how do we control that risk? Because right, a lot of the innovation process is just risk management and risk control. On IP, really, it's always scary, right? Particularly for companies like Ramble, we're consulting companies. It's all about people for us. We sell products, but it's a very small portion of our business compared to our consulting business. And so for us, letting go of our hard-earned IP is a little stressful, to be quite honest. But it's critical, right? And it's a new skill for us to really sit down and think about it, and build those sort of processes. So we feel like we're being compliant, and we're going to accomplish what we need. Again, we're trying to learn from others. There are a lot of other industry sectors that are farther down this road than us, and we're trying to bring those learnings into our sector. But it is, in some instances, we give IP into a partnership, right, as part of our investment, or we take IP from others and then invest more, perhaps, in other sources. But then you want to agree to build something together, because it has to be Thomas, to your point, it's every time is different, but you have to agree with your partners that you can build something bigger and better together, and so you're each willing to give a little of your intellectual properties. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. I think you also, by the way, answered very well the comment from Antonio. You touched upon managing IP in partnerships, which is tricky, and I think it will remain.
I wish I had a tip to make it smooth and fast. I'll be honest, we're still learning that. And it is, I think, building on what Thomas said too, it's a little, what we're learning is it can be hard you wish to think you could really standardize the process, but it's not as easy, because every partnership brings different things to the table. So Antonio, I'm sorry, I wish I had an answer for that. Maybe Thomas does, but I don't have a magic answer for that one. So.
Each case is specific.
No, but so then this other question from Conal McGinley, I'll take that real quick, because that's almost a paid question for the meta building platform. So we touched before the open innovation testbed concept, and that's not ours. Those are calls from the European Commission. I think there's 6 or 9 open innovation testbeds now that are funded by the European Commission, because there is this goal to have these cross-collaborative open innovation networks. And one in particular, this meta building platform is unique because it believes in meta clustering. It believes in standing up national technology platforms and regional representatives and technology platforms across Europe, so that SMEs from different places can plug into ecosystems. And then the other interesting thing is there are companies in this meta building project. There is a company called Impulse Partners out of France, out of Paris. And this is their core business, to pick up small technologies and be paid to bring them to bigger companies. And bigger companies pay them nice consulting contracts to have visibility on innovations in these ecosystems and clusters. So this is something that will be replicated in this meta building platform of providing European-wide visibility into some of the innovations happening in Europe, and gaining interest in providing services to the small companies and visibility to the big companies, and trying to do some matchmaking in between. So to me, it seems that your question matches very, very well the core objective of this meta building ecosystem and the concept of meta clustering.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think we can also address the comment or question from Andre, who says in the Netherlands, we noticed BIM use in industry scaled up once lower and mid-level education programs started teaching these BIM tools and methods. So once that happened, the early majority took up BIM. So what are your thoughts? And it leads us to another important topic that was also addressed in your presentation, so knowledge transfer, upskilling. What are those new skills? I mean, here there is a very tangible example on BIM.
Yeah, so then was that question directed to me?
I mean,
I have an answer. I noticed we have the R&D representative from IES in the group here, and we're their distributor in Italy. And BIM, let's take it from BIM to dynamic energy simulation. So we train and we work with professors in the Polytechnic di Milano. And now after 5 to 6 years, the engineers that we trained in the classroom are getting out into the field, and they're taking their companies to start bringing into their company this dynamic energy and simulation software. And if everybody uses software like that, your buildings are going to be a little bit better designed and performant. And now on the next wave, it's no longer dynamic energy simulation, which is their ISVE suite. It's digital twin. It's called ICL. So let's have a digital twin environment that can simulate not a building, but groups of buildings tied also to the electrical grid. And let's teach the engineers of tomorrow how to use those concepts so that these engineers become cross-sectorial. They're not just civil engineers, but they're also looking at the electrical part of the grid, the building envelope, the nature-based solutions. It's all in there. So the importance of training young engineers, bringing in the education, but having the patience to let that get out to the field, it takes some time. It is not automatic.
Yeah, perhaps Jason, you had also a comment.
Yeah, no, I mean, just building on that, I do think it is another. I think it's a very good point about it's another benefit of the close partnership and relationship between higher education and industry, right? It is that competence development and sort of spotting in both directions, right? About what is possible for industry, and a little bit around the feedback loop into education about what where the trends are going in the markets and what we do to, Thomas, to your point, what we need to see in the engineers of tomorrow in 5 years, right? It is it's a great for us, that's particularly with universities, the benefits of partnership. There's key benefits around innovation, but there's also huge benefits to us around professional development and employee development, retention, identifying the class of tomorrow, right? Yeah, it is really, it's one of the nice things about partnership. It can check multiple boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, so this broadens quite significantly the scope of the training, which is not purely engineering or related to new technologies, new software you might be in a position to use, but it's really also changing the mindsets and perhaps also moving some barriers. I was thinking, Tom, in the networks you showed as examples, meta buildings or even other projects where training and upskilling is involved. What this concept of training and networks and partnerships would bring to new novel skills? What kind of novel skills would be identified in these environments?
Well, I would connect it to the earlier comment on going beyond the design part of the innovation, but the fielding part of the innovation. And maybe we need a scaling TRL. But now let's tie this also to the European Commission. So you mentioned research and innovation actions, low TRL. You mentioned innovation actions, higher TRL. And then you can transition to the coordination and support actions. And it's the CSAs where the European Commission encourages all of us to get in the field and work on the policy, the training, the standardization, and the knowledge transfer aspects to get these first instances up. So probably my first answer to your question would be, it helps people exercise the implementation muscle. I think in this research environment, which many of the people in the call are more toward, the innovation and the development arm is stronger, but it's the implementation arm that is maybe a little bit weaker, and it's deceptively hard. We spend all day, every day on our ideas, on our technology. We understand it, we're passionate about it, but the people we're trying to sell to, not as much. So having this opportunity to get them to embrace our passion is part of the value of this training and knowledge transfer. And it's not only the decision maker that's involved, that's part of the value chain, that's at one end of it. In the middle are the professionals that then have to uptake what we're doing. And this is another great opportunity of these CSAs. These implementers for us, they're not going to read our deliverable 2.1 96-page report. They need the infographic in the 6-step process. And if you don't get them in 2 minutes, you're not going to get them. So it forces us to package the information in a way that it can be used instead of produced.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. In the meantime, we got additional comment from Andre on the TRL concept. I would say TRL as the assumption that higher education company need people, go to lower education to request for new workers, far more efficient, higher and lower education together in QLX to get integrated educational programs. Yeah, that's a good comment, of course, and always pushing into more integration of the whole value chain. And we have a question from Benoit. What is the importance of the global innovation ecosystem for the scale-up phase? The highest TRL we reach, the less important the network is? Formulated as a question. Who wants to take it?
I would disagree. It depends on what you want out of that global innovation ecosystem. I'm a business guy, so I always want contacts and partners and someone that's looking to buy what I have. So I don't go there for development. I go there for scaling and implementation. So it may not be the only answer.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, right? I think what you want from that ecosystem changes, right? Depending on what you're dealing with, right? Is it a new platform, new product that you're trying to develop, something new you're trying to take into the construction field, or is it really that scale up phase? I think that one of the things that is probably overlooked a little bit when we talk about scale up is at some point you're done scaling up an innovation, right? And this is in the TRL concept. It is in business. But that actual transition back into implementation, into operations, right? I mean, there's always a feedback loop you learn. There's always a learning loop, but it's done being an innovation. And Thomas said, it's a business now. This is where you need the partners to really drive that. So it changes who you go to, I think, a little bit in the ecosystem, but the ecosystem is still important at that stage.
Yeah, and another interesting thing that may be deceptive is no version 1 of a product is the same as version 2. And to get that version 2, you need to have those initial successes that bring in the profit to then redevelop. And your business model changes and your entire approach changes as you get bigger. So this is something we've really seen in the distributorships we operate, is that these companies are always changing because they have to. I mean, business is dynamic. Everything is dynamic. So
it's the
don't think that the game is, No, the game's not over once you have your first sales. It's just starting, and then you have to stay ahead of the competition.
Yeah, it's that life cycle management piece, right? Making sure that you're bringing the learnings into,
Dynamic network, that is right, thanks. That's from Benoit. And André added an additional comment. The problem for the construction industry is that it requires production on a specific location, therefore requires a local regional supply chain. Yeah, again true. Perhaps the ecosystem we are discussing, innovation ecosystem, helps reaching broader, let's say, geographical scope, while of course being ensured at some point on very local or regional capabilities that are provided by the partners involved in such partnerships. Thomas, I think about the meta building again example.
Right, and the comment on the local regional supply chain, different ways to do it. And the concept of this straw-filled wood and timber construction, they license the ability to fabricate their technology so it can be fabricated or produced, manufactured in different locations, and then they can provide their consulting expertise to the building projects. And that's one pathway. I mean, you can also form your company in different countries, or you can have partners or distribution supply chains, or you can sell it through big stores. Again, no single way to do it.
Yeah, and I guess just to build on that for a moment, I think too, there's a bit of a piece of this around the ecosystem is spreading awareness, right, of the new capabilities, right? What is now possible with straw and timber construction, and that in fact, and going back to the standards conversation that you had earlier, that you can't actually do that in such a way that meet fire safety standards and such. What is possible? That awareness that you drive that through the ecosystem, that begins to change the expectations of the decision makers, right? And so then that's when you start to see the push more broadly across the regional supply chain. So it is, I think, and that I made that comment earlier about, we are sort of focusing on how can we build platforms, how can we grow together, because as you do that, then every member of the ecosystem is amplifying that message, and it really gets out there. You can have a bigger impact across the supply chain.
All right, thank you. So I think with that words, we can come to a conclusion, and I think I would like to thank you very much, Tom and Jason, for the very good talks and including presentations as well. Thank also all the attendees, the audience that participated in our session, and invite you to go back to the stage where we will have the final wrap up and conclusion of the stakeholder forum. So again, thanks a lot.